There's a specific kind of pain that nobody talks about in personal finance. It's not the pain of being broke. Being broke has a strange clarity to it. You know exactly where you stand. The number is small, but at least it's visible. The pain I'm talking about is quieter. It's the feeling of doing everything right and still feeling like you're falling behind. You're contributing to your 401k. You're paying your credit card in full every month. You're driving a used car you could have replaced 2 years ago, but didn't because you did the math and the math told you not to. You're packing lunch 3 days a week while your coworker orders $40 of DoorDash without a second thought. You're doing all of it. The responsible stuff, the boring stuff, the stuff that never makes it onto Instagram because a screenshot of a 401k contribution doesn't exactly generate likes. And yet, when you open your banking app, you don't feel wealthy. You don't even feel stable. You see a checking account that still makes you nervous on the 28th of the month. You see a savings balance that feels painfully small compared to what the internet says you should have by now. You see friends who seem to spend more, live larger, and carry it all effortlessly, while you're sitting at home eating leftover rice and quietly wondering if any of this is actually leading somewhere. I lived in that feeling for years, that specific, nauseating space between doing the right thing and seeing the results of the right thing. I called it the financial fog. You can't see far enough ahead to know whether the path you're on leads anywhere good. Everything looks gray. Every benchmark feels impossibly distant. You compare yourself to people who are either further along or faking it entirely, and in the moment, you genuinely can't tell which is which. But here's what I understand now that I didn't then. The fog isn't a warning sign. The fog is the sign. That feeling of, I'm doing this and nothing is happening. That is exactly what the early stages of wealth building feel like. It's supposed to feel slow. It's supposed to feel invisible. Because wealth is built in the one place that's hardest to see, underneath the surface of your daily life, in accounts you don't check often enough, through a compounding curve that barely moves for years before it bends upward in ways that will genuinely surprise you. This video is about the 9 signs that you're building real wealth, even when your brain is telling you you're not. Some of these you'll recognize immediately and feel a quiet wave of relief. Others might permanently change the way you think about your own financial life. Let's get into it. The first sign: you have money automatically leaving your paycheck before you ever see it. This is the single most reliable wealth-building behavior that exists, and it's so unremarkable that most people don't realize it's working. If you have a 401k contribution coming out every 2 weeks or an automatic transfer hitting your Roth IRA the day after payday, you are doing the exact thing that 94% of millionaires did to build their wealth, according to the Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires. You're paying your future self first. The Vanguard 2025. How America Saves report found that the average 401k contribution rate reached 7.7% last year, with total savings rates, including employer matches, reaching 14.2%, according to Fidelity's most recent data. If your contribution is anywhere in that range, you're ahead of most working Americans. If you're above 10%, you're in a genuinely strong position, even if the balance doesn't feel like it yet. Here's what your brain gets wrong. It focuses on the balance. You check your 401k, see $41,000 and think, that's nothing compared to $1 million. Your brain compares where you are to where you need to be and quietly declares the whole project a failure. What your brain ignores is the behavior. The automatic contribution is the engine. The balance is just where the engine sits on the odometer today, and engines produce destinations. Someone contributing 12% of a $70,000 salary is putting roughly $8,400 a year into investments. At 8% returns over 25 years, that single annual contribution produces approximately $632,000. The $41,000 you see today is the seed. The $632,000 is the tree. You're staring at a seed and calling it a failure because it isn't a tree yet. That's not a financial problem. That's just agriculture. A friend of mine, I'll call him Andre, checks his 401k once a quarter. He's 32 with $78,000 saved. Every time he looks, he feels behind. He compares himself to people online who post 6-figure portfolio screenshots at 28. What Andre doesn't calculate is that he's been contributing since he was 24. His employer matches 4%. At his current rate, he'll cross $1 million before his 55th birthday without increasing his contribution by a single dollar. The person posting that 6-figure screenshot likely received family money, sold a company, or is lying. Andre is building generational wealth on a $73,000 salary and a lunch he packs 4 days a week. He just can't see it yet because the curve is still flat. It won't stay flat forever. The second sign: you pay your credit card balance in full every month. If you do this, you belong to a financial minority that is quietly separating itself from the rest of the country. Nearly half of all credit card holders carry a revolving balance month to month. Among millennials and Gen X, that number climbs to 53%. Total U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.28 trillion at the end of 2025. The average balance sits around $6,500 at a 22.4% APR. When you pay your balance in full, you're not just avoiding interest. You're avoiding the compounding destruction that that interest creates over time. A $6,500 balance at 22%, paid at the minimum, costs over $9,000 in interest across 18 years. That same $9,000 invested at 8% would have grown to roughly $32,000. The true wealth gap between carrying a balance and paying in full on a single card is over $40,000 across a couple of decades. You probably don't feel wealthy because paying in full just feels like basic responsibility. It feels like the bare minimum. It isn't. It means the compounding engine of the credit card industry isn't working against you. Every month, the money that would have gone to Visa in interest stays inside your financial life instead. That sounds simple. Half of American cardholders can't say the same. The third sign, you know exactly how much you spend every month. This sounds underwhelming until you see how rare it actually is. 47% of Americans entered 2026 without any budget at all. Among those who do budget, most are doing it just to cover the essentials, surviving the month, not building toward anything. If you track your spending, even loosely, even imperfectly, even through a spreadsheet you update on Sunday nights while the television is on, you are practicing the behavior that behavioral finance research consistently identifies as the strongest predictor of financial improvement. People who track spending save 15 to 20% more than people who don't. Tracking creates awareness. Awareness creates friction. Friction slows down unconscious spending. The average American underestimates their subscription costs by $133 a month. The average impulse purchase runs $282 a month. If you know your numbers, you've closed those gaps. The money that disappears from other people's accounts, silently, invisibly, stays in yours because you can see it. Here's the irony. You feel broke partly because you track. Non-trackers spend $300 on impulse purchases and don't feel it because they never look. You spend $80 and feel every dollar because your spreadsheet shows it to you in black and white. The awareness that makes you feel financially anxious is the exact same awareness that's building your wealth. The discomfort is the mechanism. It's working. The fourth sign, you drive a car you could have upgraded, but chose not to. The data on this is striking. The median price millionaires paid for their most recent vehicle was $31,367, according to Thomas Stanley's National Millionaire Survey. Experian found that 61% of households earning over $250,000 drive Hondas, Toyotas, and Fords. Only 23.5% of millionaires owned a car from the current model year. Meanwhile, the average new car payment in America hit $767 a month at the end of 2025. Many Americans carry payments over $1,000 on 84-month terms for vehicles that lose 20% of their value in the first year. If you're driving a 2019 Civic while your coworker pulls in with a BMW, your brain runs a status calculation that makes you the loser. What it doesn't calculate is the $400 to $600 monthly difference between your payment and theirs, compounding at 8% for the next 25 years. That difference is worth somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 depending on the spread. Your coworker is performing wealth. You're building it. The parking lot is lying to you. Your brokerage account is telling the truth. I drove a 2017 Honda Civic for 6 years. Every few months, someone in my life bought a newer car, and I felt that flicker of doubt. Am I being too frugal? Am I punishing myself unnecessarily? Then I'd check my investment account, watch the number climb, and remember why I was doing it. The Civic got me everywhere a $48,000 car would have taken me for less than half the cost. The gap between those two prices lives in my portfolio now, working for me every single day, generating returns I'll use for decades. The BMW would be worth about $12,000 by now. The fifth sign, you have an emergency fund, even a small one. If you have even $1,000 set aside specifically for unexpected expenses, you're in a stronger position than roughly a quarter of the American population. 24% of Americans have zero emergency savings heading into 2026. The median emergency fund balance across the country is around $600. One car repair away from a credit card spiral. Federal Reserve data has consistently shown that roughly 37% of Americans say they could not cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. If your emergency fund has more than $400 in it, you have more financial resilience than over a third of the country. If it has more than $2,000, you're in a materially different position than most people your age. You don't feel wealthy because the emergency fund doesn't do anything visible. It just sits there. It doesn't grow fast. It doesn't give you dopamine. It doesn't impress anyone. Your brain categorizes it as stagnant money. Here's what it's actually doing. It's preventing a $400 car repair from becoming a $4,000 credit card balance at 22%. It's breaking the cycle that traps millions of Americans in debt every single year. Its job isn't to grow. Its job is to protect everything else that is growing. It's a wall. You don't notice the wall until the flood comes, and then the wall is the only thing that matters. The sixth sign, you've said no to something you could technically afford. This is the behavioral signature of wealth building, and it's the one that feels most counterintuitive. You saw the trip. You had the credit. Your friends were going. You said no. Not because you couldn't cover it, but because covering it would have compromised something else. Your contribution rate, your emergency fund, your debt payoff timeline. That no is wealth in formation. The Ramsey Solutions Millionaire Study found that 94% of millionaires consistently lived below their means. Living below your means isn't about earning a lot. It's about spending less than you could. It's about maintaining the gap between what your income allows and what your lifestyle actually consumes. The median net worth for Americans aged 35 to 44 is $135,600. The 75th percentile is $488,400. That $352,800 difference is driven almost entirely by savings rate, not income. The people in the 75th percentile said no more often. They packed their lunches, they drove the older car, they skipped the trip, they protected the gap. A coworker of mine, I'll call her Priya, turned down a $2,600 trip to Tulum last year. She felt awful about it for weeks. Her friends posted photos for 7 straight days, and every single one felt like a direct challenge to her decision. Then she looked at her Roth IRA, which had just crossed $45,000, and did the math. That $2,600 invested over 20 more years at 8% becomes roughly $12,100. She didn't skip a vacation. She bought $12,000 of future financial security. The photos will fade. The compounding won't. The 7th sign, your net worth has gone up over the past 12 months. This is the metric that cuts through all the noise, and most people never check it. Net worth is simple. Everything you own minus everything you owe. Checking accounts, savings, investments, retirement accounts, property equity, minus your mortgage, car loan, student debt, credit card balances. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the median net worth for Americans under 35 is $39,000. For 35 to 44, it's $135,600. For 45 to 54, $247,200. For 55 to 64, $300 to $64,500. Half of Americans in each group have less than those numbers. If your net worth is near or above the median for your age, or if it simply went up over the past year, even by $5,000, even by $2,000, the trajectory is positive, and trajectory matters more than the number itself. I calculated my net worth at 29. It was negative $11,400. Terrifying. But 6 months later, negative $7,200. 6 months after that, negative $2,100. Then positive $4,800. Then $12,000. The number was small for years. The direction never wavered. And that arrow, pointing up quietly, relentlessly, is what wealth looks like before it looks like wealth. Boring, slow, almost imperceptible, and completely unstoppable for anyone who doesn't quit. Don't compare yourself to the national average, which sits around $1,063,700, a figure pulled skyward by extreme wealth at the top. Compare yourself to the median. Better yet, compare yourself to where you were 12 months ago. If the number went up, you're building. That's the only comparison that matters. The 8th sign. You've increased your income or your savings rate in the past 2 years. This doesn't require a dramatic raise or a major life change. It just requires that something moved. Maybe you negotiated a $3,000 salary increase. Maybe you raised your 401k from 6% to 8%. Maybe you cut $200 in monthly expenses and redirected it toward your Roth. The movement is the signal. Wealth isn't built through single dramatic events. It's built through what the Japanese call kaizen, continuous, small, almost invisible improvement. Fidelity reported that 45% of 401k participants increased their contribution rate in 2024. If you were one of them, even by a single percentage point, you made a decision that will compound across your entire career. If you earn $70,000 and raise your contribution from 6% to 7%, that's an additional $700 a year. You won't feel it in your paycheck. But over 25 years at 8% returns, that one adjustment adds roughly $52,000 to your retirement account. Do that each year for 5 years, moving from 6% to 11%, and the additional wealth from those incremental increases alone approaches $300,000. The fog makes you think nothing is changing because the changes feel like rounding errors. But compounding doesn't care what something feels like. It cares what something does over time. And small, consistent increases do something extraordinary over time. They widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend. They feed the engine. Every year, the engine gets a little more fuel. Every year, the curve gets a little steeper. You can't see the steepness yet because you're still standing on the flat part. The flat part is where most people give up. The steep part is where the wealth is. The 9th sign. When an unexpected expense hits, you feel annoyed, not panicked. This one is less about the dollar amount in your emergency fund and more about what happens inside you when the bill arrives. When your car needs a $600 repair, does your stomach drop into crisis mode? Or do you exhale, move some money, and get on with your you're weak. Annoyed means you have margin. Panicked means you don't. And margin, that quiet space between your income and your obligations, is wealth in its earliest, most foundational form. 46% of Americans can't cover 3 months of basic expenses according to Bankrate. 24% have no buffer at all. If an unexpected bill lands in your life and your response is frustration rather than fear, you possess something that nearly half the country does not. Stability. And stability doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like nothing, which is precisely why most people don't recognize it until it's gone. Ask anyone who's spent a Tuesday night on their bathroom floor with a calculator app open, trying to figure out whether they can afford to fix their car. Ask them what stability is worth. They'll tell you everything. Stability is the foundation that every other wealth-building behavior rests on. You can't invest consistently if a broken appliance sends you spiraling into credit card debt. You can't maintain your savings rate if every unexpected expense resets your progress to zero. The person who handles a $600 repair with a sigh and a transfer from savings is a person whose wealth-building engine runs without interruption. And that unbroken chain of contributions and compounding, uninterrupted, month after month, is what produces the results that look impossible from the flat part of the curve. Here's what I need you to understand about all 9 of these signs taken together. The median net worth for Americans aged 55 to 64 is $364,500. That's the midpoint. Half have less. Many of those people earned 6-figure incomes for decades. Many of them looked wealthier than you do right now. Nicer cars, better vacations, a wardrobe that looked like success. They were performing. You're building. The median is produced by people who don't automate their investments, who carry credit card balances, who don't track their spending, who finance depreciating cars on 84-month loans, who have no emergency fund, who can't say no to the trip, who never check their net worth, who panic when an unexpected bill arrives. That's what produces $135,600 of net worth at 40. That's the retirement crisis in 4 sentences. You are doing the opposite. The fog tells you you're losing. The math says you're compounding. The fog is a feeling. The math doesn't care about feelings. The financial fog doesn't lift on its own. It lifts when your understanding of how money moves over time becomes clear enough that you can see through it. When you understand compound interest at a visceral level, you stop panicking about a $41,000 balance at 32 because you can see the million it becomes at 55. When you understand opportunity cost, driving a used car stops feeling like deprivation because you can see the $700,000 the gap produces. When you understand the relationship between savings rate and timeline, you stop measuring yourself against the BMW in the parking lot because you understand that performing wealth and building wealth are quietly and completely opposite behaviors. That understanding has a name: financial literacy. It's the thing that burns off the fog. It's what makes every sign on this list feel less like isolated behaviors you're white-knuckling through, and more like a coherent system quietly building something real beneath the surface of your daily life. Without it, you do the right things without knowing why they're right. The fog persists because you can't see the connection between today's choices and tomorrow's outcomes. With it, the fog lifts. You can see the curve. You can see where you are on it. You can see where it's going. And once you see that, something shifts permanently. You stop needing motivation, stop needing reassurance, stop needing to win the parking lot comparison. You just keep doing the quiet, unglamorous things. Every month, every paycheck, every no to something that would have felt good for a day and cost you $10,000 over a decade. You keep going because you can finally see what you're building, and what you're building is real. The signs are there. The math is on your side. The curve bends for everyone who stays on it long enough. You've been on it longer than you think.